Hello, everyone. Welcome to Overcoming Fear event. I'm your host, Paige Wei, and I'm very happy to introduce our guest. She's Shannon Leischner. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Paige. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
I am known as something called the spiritual catalyst. And what that means is I help people on their spiritual journey unlock avenues that may be a block for them or that may be a little bit locked for them. I also help people with trauma and fear and depression, physical pain, lots of PTSD people and people who are getting out of relationships and those who've dealt with narcissists and pretty much the gambit. So I help people in that area heal, but I also help people find their path. I help people with businesses. I've been working with a lot of businesses to help them with their money flow. So any area of their lives that might be a little bit slower or might not be as open, I help them open that up.
That's amazing. Could you share with us one of the scariest time of your life in which you have overcome your fear, and how did you do that?
Okay, so the scariest time of my life, I actually was shot in the Las Vegas massacre. So I was in that area, or I was in the whole massacre. And so what happened essentially, I have to back up a little bit. 2 months before that, I was able to see it. I started to feel, I was laying in bed. I started to feel the pain. I started to feel the anxiety. I felt the warmth of the blood come down my body. And I started to panic. And at that moment, I figured out that maybe I was tapping into a dimensional me. So another me in another dimension that maybe needed my help. So I was reminded that I was a healer, so that I should heal it. And so what I did was I watched the bullet leave my organs and leave my body and heal behind it. So fast forward a couple months, I'm heading to Vegas. I'm with my friends, and that night happens. And right before it happens, I get a message: get out now. Well, I'm front stage center. That's not happening, right? You don't just get, I don't know if you've ever been to a concert, but when there's 20,000 people and you're in front in the center, getting out is nearly impossible. So I start working my way towards the side and working my way towards the side. When I get to the last people, that's when the gunshots started. At first we thought it was fireworks, and my instincts kicked in. Because in that moment, you could either go into pure fear or you can go into almost like your instinctual self. And so everyone started to run, and I decided to continue on the path that I was going on. When in that moment, I recognized the metal object that I had seen in my vision 2 months before that. So I started to see the scene, and it reminded me of what I had seen. And I knew at that moment cognitively, okay, here it comes. This is when the whole thing's going to happen. And so I heard a high pitch ringing, almost like something was coming towards me. And I got a message: you're going to be hit. It's okay. Allow it to happen. We're going to help you. And so at that very moment, the bullet hit my stomach. It started to go in. And as it started to go in, I felt it, and I'm ripping, like trying to rip at my shirt. And at that very moment, everything went super slow motion. It was like my brain had gone into Delta mode. And there was a bright light that appeared right where I was hit, and the bullet went out the same way that it came in. And somehow miraculously closed. And at that very moment, it was like I was remembering everything from 2 months before that. The person that I had seen in my vision showed up. I'm a nurse, I'm going to help you. And she starts looking for the wound. She's like, I can't find the exit wound. And I said, I don't think there is one. And so I went to pick up the bullet, and it was super hot, and I was unable to actually grab it. However, in that moment, my brain switched from, oh my God, this is a crazy moment happening, to if I'm going to die here, I'm going to die here helping as many people as possible. So I switched out of the victim mode and into action mode. So I was able to walk around and I was helping as many people as I could. I was trying to get more nurses. We were carrying bodies. I mean, there was a whole lot going on. So fast forward, because in that event, people were going through trauma, but also you're going through adrenaline. So the body is releasing this adrenaline, so you can switch into the helpful mode. Your body goes into shock, and all of things happen. So after that is when the PTSD sat in. It's when the survivor's remorse kicks in. It's when all of the fear then comes in, because the brain now goes, we've been through this major trauma. How do we push through that? And so that is when I really began to understand that my brain in that moment had opened up and allowed for me to remember how to help people with this. So I started to move out my own trauma out of my own brain, and I began to remember how to do it for other people. So I literally can go into somebody's brain, go into a trauma that they have, and move it out. So they'll remember it, but they will no longer be triggered or have any massive emotion towards it. And so that was something wonderful that came from that, although it was a very big, long road to completely get out of that situation. And I can't even say, I mean, once you're in a trauma that large, you can be okay, you can be healed, but there will be moments where the brain, because part of the amygdala, I'm sure you know about the amygdala says you're in danger. Whether you're in danger or you're not, the brain hears something, is triggered by something, and goes into protection mode. And so you can heal it, but there will be certain points in life where even the protection mode will get kicked in, and then you just recognize it and have to move forward with it. So that's the story.
That's incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And a few things came to mind. And one of which I feel is that we may be spending so much time thinking about the past or worrying about the future, and we may not be fully present, being present with ourselves, and simply appreciate that and be grateful that we are alive. And when we are in this state of gratitude, we won't feel fearful.
Yes.
And I'm also wondering, how do you help people to overcome their fear and to have the courage to live a life of living their life purpose?
So I've had lots of clients who've had lots of fears, lots of phobias. But my favorite story is a client who was he was 9 years old. 9 years old, and he was scared of trees. And anytime the wind would blow, he would think that a tree was going to fall on top of him. Obviously, probably some sort of past life memory or something. So I had him envision the tree, and I had him envision the wind. And I wanted to see, because I can actually go into the brain and see what was happening. And I wanted to see where the brain started to fire, where the trauma was. And so what I did with him was I began to talk to him and say, what do trees remind you of? So in that moment, I wanted to relate to him as who he is in his age range. And so he said, well, trees kind of remind me of Groot. I don't know if you've seen the Marvel shows, but they reminded him of Groot. And I said, do you honestly think, Groot, that would hurt you? And he's like, no. And in that moment, his brain fired in another spot. He went into analysis. So I was able to take that memory of Groot and put it into the trauma, the past trauma and the fear. And when I did that, he no longer was scared of the trees. And the wind could blow as much as he wanted to. He would actually stand under trees, and he had no more issues with that particular fear. So it just depends on the person, and it depends on the process, but it's pretty much the same. You take them to exactly what they're fearful of. You find, at least for me, I find the spot in the brain that it's activating, and I switch it with something else. So I help to create a new neural pathway.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And
Oh,
I
my
also know that you have several energy techniques, such as theta healing. Could you share more with us on energy healing and fear?
Yes. So energy healing for me, the biggest thing is to understand that our bodies are made up of vibrating molecules. We are energy. And the only reason that we stay solid is that the molecules vibrate fast enough to stick together. So each one of those molecules have senders and receivers. So they're always sending and receiving messages. So in understanding that, everybody affects other people with energy. So when we can understand that, we can go in a little bit deeper and truly get to the root of what's going on with a person and affect those molecules. So we affect those particular senders and receivers. And so that's how I do it. But the other part is it's a remembering. So each and every one of us are equipped with the ability to heal. We just are conditioned in this world to believe that we are only limited to certain things. So we only open up certain doors. But for those of us who have opened those doors, we can now travel in between them and even create bigger doors to practice and do something even deeper. Like we can go deeper into the healing. So what I do is essentially, I love, as you can tell, I love working with the brain and I love working with the body. So I can go into the brain or go into the body wherever there's an issue. And the wonderful thing is that our organs and our cells will talk to us. So they will tell you what's going on. So if I go in, let's say someone's having stomach issues, and I go in and I hear mom, 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 and it's a nagging mom, I will ask them, how's your relationship with your mom? And so we'll deal with something else while resolving the issue of the stomach. So that's essentially how I go about doing it.
That's amazing. And what I love about what you have shared is the part that we have to trust that we are able to heal ourselves. Do you have any process or tool you would like to share with us to help us to face our fear?
Oh, yes. So one of my biggest thoughts or feelings is that fear isn't real. What is real is our perceptions of limitations, and those aren't really real. Those are real in our perceptions. So if we shift our perception, and let's say that we're in a fear prison, right? So let's imagine ourselves in a fear jail. Fear itself only has the 3 walls. So if you turned around, you would notice that the prison wall behind you is completely open. We just need to shift our perspective. I truly believe in this lifetime that we have 2 choices. We can either be a victim of this world or we can be a leader of this world, but we can't be both. So we need to choose which path we want to go through. And for those who sit in fear, a lot of the times they're pointing out to other people. They're going to do this. This is going to happen. And they're worried about what the outside world is going to do to them rather than taking control and a leadership role in their lives to create whatever it is they want to create. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it does. Is there a process you can lead us through for us to move through our fear?
Yes. And so besides the prison one, what I always do is when you're fearful of something, you ask yourself, what am I truly fearful of? What is it that I'm fearing at this moment? So then you go through the process. So then let's say that we're fearful of public speaking. And then the question is, where does that come from? When was the first time I felt fearful of public speaking? And maybe it's a memory of my dad showed up one time drunk. Let's just say I'm making this up, but my dad showed up one time drunk at my recital. And after that, I was fearful. And so then the issue isn't public speaking, it's the issue of what dad did and the trauma that dad created while he was at your recital. So then you go into, okay, how do I feel about this particular event? What did it make me feel? Every trauma, every fear, everything that we ever have in our lives is always anchored in emotion. So whatever that emotion is, if you can release the emotion, you can release the trauma, the fear, the anger, whatever it is. And so when you really truly get to the root of why you're fearful, then you can say, okay, what is it that I feel about that? What does it create inside of me? Then once you have that, then I always imagine sitting with Creator and I say, okay, Creator, here you go. Here are all of my emotions for this particular event. I'm asking you to release these emotions and give me what it feels like to be safe and secure. And that usually works pretty well. The other thing I recommend for fear is to face it, because once you actually face what you're fearful of, it no longer has control over you.
And for me, what I feel is that many times the scariest moment is just before taking the first step. So yes, so do you have anything to say about this to help us to face our fear and take the first step?
Well, you know, my favorite pair of shoes is Nike, and they always say, just do it, right?
Yes.
So the biggest thing is just, if you put, like you said, push past that one threshold and you're going to see your world expand. So definitely, if you're fearful of something, run towards it, because then you no longer can be fearful. Don't take steps. Like, it's like getting in a cold swimming pool, right? When you get in, you're taking little teensy tiny steps at a time. It's hard. But if you just jumped in, then it would be okay. Now, there is a difference between fear and danger. And I want to make that distinction. If there is real and present danger, don't jump in. But if it's just something perceived, like, oh, I'm worried about what they're going to say or what they're going to think about me, oh, just keep going. You'll be just fine.
Thank you for sharing that. I know you have a free gift for our audience. Could you tell us more about this?
Yes, so I created a healing CD, and I created it in partnership with somebody else. And it works on safety and security. It works on fear. It works on allowing you to align back to where you need to be in order to create the life that you want to live. It's actually called Awakening.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us on overcoming fear?
I would say if you're fearful of something, know that that is a limitation that you've created for yourself. And the best thing you can do is really push through it. It's just to push forward, because then, you know, this is what I did one time. I made a list of everything I was fearful of, and I checked off the list, each and every one. I did it. So I would recommend, if you're really, truly serious about getting over the fears that you have, make a list of what you're fearful of and do them, because they'll no longer have power over you. And then you'll actually take back your power. It'll empower you to be the person that you actually want to be in this life.
Thanks for sharing that. And could you tell us how we can find you?
So I'm on just about every social platform possible. My website, shannonleischner.com, ShannonLeischner.com. I'm on Facebook, Shannon Leischner. I'm also on Instagram, Angelic Guide, and let's see, what else? Twitter, Angelic Guide. So you can find me just about on anywhere. I also have a YouTube.
And I really appreciate you for being here, sharing with us your stories, your insights. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Paige, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And to our audience for joining us. Goodbye.
Hey.